Hello.
Fun props.
We're already we've already kicked off the props, guys. My name is Beth Spotswood. I'm Alta Magazine's digital editor, and I am really excited to welcome everyone to episode 23 of Alta Asks Live. This is the digital video version of Alta Asks. It's started as an author interview series. Now we're kind of expanding and doing events like this one today. For example, today I'm really excited to welcome two cartoonists whose work has appeared in Alta, Hilary Campbell and Amy Kurzweil. Hilary and Amy are here to answer all of our questions about cartoons, and I have many. We'll chat for about 20-25 minutes, and then we're going to open it up to your questions and comments. So please use the chat feature on the side or the question button down below, and I will make sure that we get to as many as we have time for. We're going to chat for about 30 minutes today, so short and sweet. We're going to have a great time, and hopefully this is kind of a fun break in your Wednesday. It's certainly one in mine. Brief book checking in with everyone. If you're not already familiar with Alta, now is the perfect time to describe. I don't know if you've heard the buzz, but we have virtually scooped up 3 Los Angeles Press Club awards for stories from our previous issue. We're very proud of this. Next month, we're going all noir themed for fall. So if you haven't already joined Alta as a member, now is a really great time. And you don't just get a gorgeous magazine like this every quarter in your mailbox, but events like these, and we're really trying to kind of build a community here. So I am most excited that you are joining us today. And without further ado, let's kick it off. Hilary and Amy, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having us.
First of all, where are each of you? One on the West Coast, one of you's on the East Coast.
Emotionally, or
yeah,
geographically. We can begin with geographically.
You want to start, Hilary?
Oh, I'm in Brooklyn, and that's where I am.
We've swapped coasts because I was in Brooklyn. Hilary is originally from California, and she was here, and then now I'm in California. I just moved across the country. But I was going to say that literally I'm in a closet, which is like my fun studio that I made for myself.
It's an Alta Asks Live exclusively studio, or this is your creativity, your drawing, your cartooning studio?
This is just my make it look like I'm in front of a cool bookshelf studio for Zoom calls, but it's actually a closet. And I was considering not sharing that, but I think it's funnier that it's known.
Yeah, we're in support of wherever you need to be to do this. And
it's like that there's like a Will McPhail cartoon where you see the light coming from the computer screen, and the woman just looks like she's bathed in beautiful light and has this amazing setting behind her, and then like outside the room is just chaos and like raccoons eating garbage, and like I think that's all of our lives right now.
Well, that's a great segue into kind of my first question for both of you, and I'll try and kind of ask Hilary and then Amy. But what is the life of a cartoon? What comes first? Is it something like us sitting here? I'm on the floor right now and kind of looking around and developing the joke of the cartoon, the concept of the cartoon first. Are you just sketching kind of things? You look out the window and see something. What's the process of kind of like blank piece of paper, empty mind, to you're appearing in Alta?
I think Amy will probably say a similar answer, but it's both. You either are drawing and like find something, you go realize something's a joke just by drawing and whatever your mind comes up with, or sometimes you're walking and like maybe a joke line hits you first, and you think, how can I make that an image that also work with an image? But for me, I am just sort of constantly drawing anything that's in my mind, and not all of them turn into gag cartoons, which is what single panel cartoons called. So some things lend themselves to a single panel gag, and then since Amy and I both do autobiographical comics as well, or some stuff is more personal, but maybe you end up selling a publication on Medium that does long form comics. So, or some stuff is just very silly for Instagram, and like isn't maybe gonna sell somewhere. So I think it's just sort of about it's a constant thinking game, in my opinion.
I think, I mean, people will talk about the distinction between like the words first cartoonist or the image first cartoonist. And I think the truth is we're all a little bit of both. I mean, I feel about Hilary, like something I admire about her is I feel like she just like thinks in drawing. Like if you've ever watched her live draw, it's just like it comes out of her so easily. I think I'm actually a little more of like a words first person. Like I have to kind of turn the concept over in my head in words for a while before I'm comfortable drawing it. And I'm trying to get better at the other approach. But for me, the anatomy of a cartoon is like, I tend to think about some concept that's puzzling me. Like this week, I was stuck on the idea of news feeds. And I was like, okay, the news feed is this like constant thing that we just scroll through and like, does it have an end? Like, where does the news feed end? And then I came up with like a bunch of cartoons that were like about the ending of a news feed or like what a news feed like sort of looks like in my head. Like, is it a rainbow with a pot of gold at the end of it? Is it like, like a sidewalk that like just keeps going? And I came up with a bunch of cartoons just sort of riffing off that idea. So for me, it's like my cartooning process is very riff based where there's something in my head that I know is weird. Like there's something weird about a news feed. That's like a new thing in our lives that like causes us a lot of grief. And so it's a source of like something that I can throw other things at, like other visual images or other daily activities. And I can like come up with some cartoon off of that sort of germ of an idea. So that's how it tends to work for me.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Hilary.
I kept recently thinking about what do witches do during summer. So I have like a ton of witch cartoons. But so it's like some things you just get obsessed with and you go, what is this? I think so most cartoons come from your just daily existence because we're all just people walking around and like you're like we all have anxiety and it's whatever it is that day.
So the one-off cartoon, the ones that like we post in Alta, or a New Yorker cartoon is probably the most famous. That's called a gag cartoon, and it's just like the one image in the line.
Yeah.
Do you do lots of different kinds of cartoons? Do you also do comics? Do you do greeting cards? What is the job world in terms of taking an idea and getting paid for it look like?
Yeah, I think today Hilary and I are very similar in that we do kind of all of it. Like we have done, I started sort of backwards. I got into comics and cartoons because I wrote a whole graphic memoir that took me like 8 years and was sort of torturous, but taught me this form that I could then use in all these different ways. And like Hilary's working on a book now that she can probably tell you about, but we do long form stuff. And the short form stuff is like, for me, a way to finish a project that doesn't take 8 years. So like, it's nice to have something that I can do in a few hours. But I'll also do graphic essays. I've done illustration projects. It's kind of like whatever someone will pay you for. It's like what you'll use this form for. And I think it's actually changed in our generation that we do so many different kinds of word and image activities. I think it used to be the case that you could really make a career as a gag cartoonist. And because you can't make a career fully as a gag cartoonist anymore, in a way that's like the positive of that is that people are exploring these other forms more and like telling longer stories too.
Hilary?
Yeah, no, so Amy and I definitely operate basically in a lot of this same world stuff. So I think also because my brain's always scattered, it's comforting to work on gags, but then also have like a long-term project that I'm also working on and then maybe something that's a little shorter than that. And so I illustrate books as well. I did like last year I had Are You My Uber come out that was written by a woman named Sarah Dooley. And then I did Feminist Fight Club and whatever. So I illustrate books because often that's like a better, as far as like making money, illustrating a book that's like, you know, being published by a good publisher. That's a solid way because gag cartoon can be really tough as far as the amount that you can sell and that the number of magazines that buy gag cartoons is like, you know, that's dwindled, as Amy said. We, you know, we talk to the older New Yorker cartoonists about their lives and we hear about it a lot and how amazing it sounds. And they could just like, they're like, oh, if it didn't sell at the New Yorker, you just walked down the street to the Post and then you went there and then you went there. They had everywhere to sell a cartoon and we don't have that anymore. I was like, we were all so excited when Alta came to be. You know, I remember, I can't remember if this was just a couple of years ago when we found out. Yeah, just like buying cartoons. We're like, oh my God, really? Like, so there's that. And then there's online publications that do longer form, you know, long form comics that like autobiographical essays and, you know, other issues. I'm working on one right now that's about that I'm not a foodie and I can't stand it when everyone's a foodie around me. So that's been a fun thing to write. And I'm working on a graphic memoir. So you have to be doing all these things to, you know, paycheck too. And that's also exciting, right? It's exhausting that we have to like form our paychecks this way and like can't really rely on too much.
It's very gig. Like I just got my I get my monthly email from Medium, which is an online publication, kind of like an Instagram, but something that you're supposedly able to make money off. And I just got my paycheck for I think 57 cents for this month. So it's like, it's just so funny the way our income will work. We'll get like, you know, a big windfall more or less from selling a book, you know, once every 8 years. And then every month you get from like a couple $100 to a couple cents from various publications. So it's like, it's just kind of, our taxes are like insane, basically.
Yeah, that's the sucky part is the taxes.
Yeah,
I'm in touch with that. So are you able to still be full-time artists?
Amy and I are. You know, but Amy teaches also. But I think it's scary, but I think it's for a long, you know, I didn't, when I first started cartooning, I was a waitress and a nanny. And then it took a few years to get to a position where I could be like confident and just trying to full-time do freelancing. And I've been able to keep that up for a little while so far. So, you know, but I think freelancing is always scary. You never really know, you know, like what a year is going to look like. But for now, we're drawing.
And you both live in such expensive places. California and Brooklyn. You know, I would think it would be easier to be a cartoonist. I mean, you can essentially work from anywhere, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the pandemic hasn't affected for us, is like we can still sort of do our work from anywhere. But yeah, I mean, I've always made my living sort of as a teacher, and it's just in the last few years that I've been able to transition a little more from teaching less into doing my art more. I also apply for fellowships like constantly, and gotten a few fellowships that have been able to like support me to really work on my books. But yeah, I mean, one of the things about the age of the arts that we're in, you know, to contrast it with the old way of doing things, which Hilary and I have heard a lot from the old New Yorker guard. Like when we used to go into the office in person, we'd get the weekly update from Sam Gross about like which magazines aren't buying cartoons anymore. And, you know, and so there is this like definite turnover and loss of this old way of doing things where you used to be able to really make a living from like being on a magazine staff and being the cartoonist on that staff. But that's no longer an option for us. But what is an option for us are all these other opportunities to like sell our work to various publications online, you know? So there's like, we end up having to work more to create work online, but there are more opportunities to be showing our work online. And then for me also, like being able to kind of build my own classroom through just finding people who want to study with me in a Zoom class off Instagram is this totally like new thing that, you know, wouldn't have really happened in the past, that I can just create my own community and my own following and then do what I want with it. That feels like a feature of this new age of being an artist.
Definitely. And with Instagram and other whatever social media platforms, I think that there's also like more visibility if you for many artists that you can have this more fan base and like be able to just sell art just directly from, you're the one selling it, you know, you don't have to be have a middleman so much anymore. And I think like as far as more opportunities, like especially with like, I love autobio comics, and I think nowadays there's definitely more places to do that widely, which is cool that there's like online places where people want to read this stuff. Like sometimes I'm shocked. I'm so happy I get to draw it, but I'm like, thank you, I guess. Like you want to read about that's cool. Like and
I do think also like another good feature of our age, I mean, there's all kinds of complaints we could make about being an artist today, but like one of the good features is that this sort of gatekeeperness of the past, where like there was like, you know, a handful of magazines with editors that felt like kind of these like iron gates that you had to like shake at in order to get in, like that's falling away. So for better or for worse, you know, you can build your own following and you don't have to have a certain kind of education or be a certain kind of person or have a certain background in order to get popularity in this like online world. And so there's something democratic, a little more democratic maybe about the way artists are getting popular today. But that being said, like it's still very unstable for all of us.
You've mentioned it a couple of times, and you know, no shade to Alta, but is the New Yorker the end all be all of the one-off? Is landing a gag cartoon in the New Yorker the like winning, you know, the Oscar of cartooning or the pinnacle?
What do you think, Hilary?
Yeah, I mean it's the but the cars, you know. I get, yes. I mean, it's a, you know, and I think people take you more seriously when you're like, well, you know, if you have like that as your byline, but also I don't want to say that they're like the only voice in town, you know, they're not. But it's an honor. It's a huge honor.
Yeah, regardless of whether or not it's like really the end all be all, it does mean something in the world. So like when I got to put that on when my first book came out, I got to like, you know, my first New Yorker cartoon, you know, came out, I think maybe a few months before my first book came out. And I got to put that in my bio. And that was like, everyone in my publishing house was so excited because it just like leveled me up. And it's cool because the new editor, like not that she's new anymore, but Emma Allen like has made a point of trying to seek out like lots and lots of new people and new voices to publish in the New Yorker so that more people get that byline, which really makes a difference in their careers. So I think practically like it does matter a lot when you can put that in your bio.
Go ahead.
Someone commented that Barron's used to buy. I sold to Barron's before, right? Did you have any in Barron's, Amy? The financial magazine? No. But then, like, I think they stopped buying like a week later. I barely made it in.
I have kind of two questions about like Alta's process of kind of seeking out cartoons, and I have a million questions, and so do other people. So I will ask these, and then we'll get to other people. Oh no, I'm going to ask 3 questions. The process for Alta, for those that don't know, is that, you know, we get over 1,000 cartoon submissions every quarter, and kind of our small team at Alta goes through and narrows down our favorites, and we narrow it down until we pick 12, 8 for the magazine and 4 online exclusives each quarter. So it's the top kind of 1% of our favorites that make it in. The vast majority of the submissions come from men. Is this why? What is it about cartooning that is so male dominated?
Oh, it's such a good question. And like we could talk about it forever. I don't even know where to start.
Confident. I don't know.
I mean, I think
I
the explanation for yeah, go ahead, Hilary.
No, I was just gonna say that like when you think maybe originally of like comics, you're like DC Comics, men, like it's like maybe what a lot of people think of first if you're not fully aware of the vast world of cartooning. So maybe men like initially are more drawn to that type of stuff, but women are drawn in a completely different way. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think like on the one hand, the explanation for this is complicated. On the other hand, it's quite simple, which is like historically things that have been done by men continue to be done by men because people see that that's who's accepted and that's the voice, that becomes like the sort of dominant voice of that art form. So like who had time to be an artist at all historically or a writer? Men. Mm-hmm. And I think like the exception in comics is that a lot of women started getting involved like after the underground comics revolution, which ironically was like kind of pioneered by men like Robert Crumb and Art Spiegelman and like people who were trying to do weirder, dirtier, more personal things with comics, like in response to that whole sort of like more mainstream superhero comics world. But because that was like a breaking sort of boundaries of comics, a lot of women like Aileen Kaminsky Crumb and like Trina Robbins, and there were a lot of women who started getting on board with that like underground comic scene, which was more about people's personal lives and more about like autobiography and memoir, which is what Hilary and I do also and are kind of inspired by. So I do think that like in the comics world, women are more drawn to personal stories. And so if you look at the submissions for like, another publication that does personal essays, I would say that like more of the submissions come from women. And then when you're looking at something that's like gag cartoons, more of the submissions are going to come from men because that's the way that women have been pushed is like into the personal storytelling realm. I don't know. So for whatever reason, it feels like the gag cartoon world has been slower to attract women. I don't know. That's the complicated explanation. I don't know why that is. It might have something to do with the form, or it might just be like the historical accident continuing to perpetuate itself.
Yeah, and I think the job itself, like, if you're like, do you want to grow up to be a cartoonist, is often not in many people's mind. Like that's not like a typical career path that is like pushed onto anyone as a child. So it's like shocking when any of us end up being a cartoonist. You're like, when did that happen? So that also probably deters, that deters people out of like finance. You have like, can you financially do this as a career? Like, can you be stable? What if you can't afford to have like an unstable lifestyle and like it's a very complicated issue.
Right. One we don't have time for in our small half hour of tackling gender equity in the art world. Do you guys both work on paper and pen? Is there, can you show, I mean, I don't know if you have anything handy. I know we talked about this earlier. We're in a weird format to kind of share visually here. Paper. But if you have something, if you can. Oh.
These are just random cartoons from my batch. This one, you can't even read the line, and I won't pretend these are funny, but anyway, here's a news. I told you I was thinking about news feeds. These didn't sell and they will never sell. So here's my like pot of gold at the end of the news.
With the thumbs up, why will that never sell?
I don't know. It just didn't sell and I don't think it'll sell. But if Alta wants to buy it, you can consider this a submission. But I draw for my cartoons, I draw right on this like mixed media paper. Which is like a little bit of a thicker paper. And I just use pencil and ink. So like I have this like brush pen that I like, and some fine line pens that I like. And then to get the gray wash, I use watered down ink and brush. And that's basically the process. I try to like do it as quickly as possible.
You don't want to think while you're inking, like, because if you start to be like, it's supposed to look this way, you'll overdo it, and it's a disaster.
Yeah.
But wash is like something it's so hard when I started. I don't understand this, and I think a lot of cartoonists are self-taught people. They're not going to cartoon school, though some people do. But I didn't know what I was doing with ink wash, and I finally have like maybe started to feel more comfortable with my abilities. I have this random one sitting here that is a replay of Not Natural Woman. You Make Me Feel Like a Paranoid Woman. I'm the same baby. I just draw on paper.
That's a beautiful ink wash.
Isn't it fun? Thank you. My favorites that I tried to sell forever. I resubmitted it forever and it never sold, but that's okay. And then I like, as far as coming up with ideas, I just have like 5,000 notebooks. I usually fill like 2 to 3 a month because I'm constantly drawing, but I just like draw. Let's find something remotely funny. And I think the whole point is that you're always looking for ideas. So that's why for me it's like cartooning, like you have to write down everything to come up with anything at all. So I did and I have a Patreon that I do diary comics for, but I took my dog to the beach for the first time. So I just enjoy writing about whatever happened that day because you can find a joke in it somewhere. But so some things turn into cartoons, and then some things are just so stupid that you can't even, draw them later. But
see, this is what I mean about Hilary, like thinking and drawing. Like I'm like envious of that. My note-taking process for comics is like embarrassingly uncreative. I just have this like really long note on my phone that goes on.
I do it.
It's just like, and it's so long that I like have to spend forever getting to the end of it. But I just, for whatever reason, I want to just text my idea down, and it'll be just something some like incomprehensible string of words that reminds me of what the idea was. If I try to draw it right away, I feel like I get frustrated with myself. I don't know. So like my note-taking process is all in words, which I feel like is the wrong way to do it. But
no, not wrong, Amy. Well, I think I really appreciate, like, when I saw your drafts, I was like in awe when you said, you're like, well, I did this first beautiful draft, and then I love seeing like the beginning of your work and having it come to, and it just is so beautiful. So we all have our different ways.
Yeah, when I draft when I'm working on a book, and so my book draft experience is different. I do it on this like graph paper, just with like these Blackwing pencils that I'm obsessed with, which is just like a thick pencil. And I think like part of the reason why my note-taking process needs to be in words is because once I sit down to draw, it's really hard for me not to just like keep drawing until it looks exactly how I want it to look. So my drafts tend to be like really elaborate. And that's not useful for when you're trying to get ideas down quickly. So I don't know.
I think like it's all in here, and you're like, get it out of me. You're like, get it out. I want it out, and it's stressful. You feel like you can't keep up with it. And especially with Instagram, you feel like you can't keep up with anything. You're like, oh God, I'm not doing anything fast enough because every artist has something else new out, and like, dear God, how do I keep up with this machine? And that, I mean, I often am like, I turn my phone off because I have so much anxiety about my phone, and that like whether or not it equates to like my worth.
Hilary, didn't you tell me you like disinstall Instagram from your phone every day or something like that?
Constantly deleting Instagram off my phone and installing it later in the day because I have such a horror to whatever is happening on there. Doesn't mean any, I check in and then I go, that didn't get me anything. Like, why am I doing this? It drives me insane. I got a landline, actually, is what happened. I turned my phone. I have a landline. I'm like, you can call me there. I can't have my phone with me this much.
You should read this book, Hilary. That happens to be right behind me.
What is it?
How did it happen?
Oh,
Resisting the Attention Economy.
I'll get it. I'll order
read it.
Okay, we're getting a bunch of questions as we run out of time. This is so fun, you guys. Can you Can you tell us just really quickly some of your favorite cartoonists? Who should we be looking out for? Who should we seek out on Instagram or elsewhere?
You probably know them. My favorite cartoonist.
All our friends.
All of our friends. Ellis is one of my absolute favorite cartoonists, who is also both of our best friends. I think they're Will McPhail, Sarah Lotman, Rita Sapinor, who actually she's a Bay Area cartoonist.
Sophia Warren,
Jason
Adam Katzenstein, Liana Fink.
And then like my original, I'll forever be in love with Snoopy. So that's like my real and Charles.
Could you hazard a loose guess as to the percentage of completed cartoons you sell a month?
Oh God, -%.
Yeah.
1%?
Yeah. Like maybe like 1 out of 100.
Yeah.
50 at the most.
Mm-hmm. I haven't sold no.
I think also like because of the condition of artists that we described at length in the beginning of this interview, like I don't know, I don't think Hilary and I submit as often as some people because we are like writing a book and doing a million other things. So
yeah,
we have some friends who submit every week and have probably better track records than both of us, but it's like we just
that's
can't.
very right. No, I can't keep up because so if you're, and you can, like, if you're like, I am focused solely on gag, I'm not going to do anything else. And then if that is your goal every week, I think that you definitely better track record. But I had to like go into the New Yorker at the beginning of this year and be like, I sold a graphic memoir. I'm going to be stepping away because like, I'll try to come up with gag cartoons, but I'm writing like a 300-page book. So I can't.
Which is amazing.
I know, I know. Exciting, but then you feel guilty. You're like, oh no, I might. Oh no, like.
Well, what's so funny about this like whole world of comics is like I wrote a graphic memoir. It took me 8 years. It's named Flying Couch, by the way. You should check it out. I'm working on another one. It's also probably going to take me 8 years, and it's like the amount of people who read that book. Maybe it's like. I mean, I don't know, even if it's 10,000 people read my book, oh, yay. I don't have a copy because mine's in storage, but thank you, Hilary.
And then you drew me.
Oh, the number of people who read that book is still like, even if it's like 9,000 people, it's still so many less people than will see a New Yorker cartoon that I publish that I spent, a couple hours on. And so it is like kind of an interesting incentive to keep publishing cartoons, even if you have it in you to write something that takes you longer and maybe is more meaningful to you. It's like it's still I don't know, it's like you feel this pressure to be doing the thing that gets you more eyes on you, but that's not always the thing that's your deepest heartfelt thing that you want to do. So
exactly.
I just put a link to buy Flying Couch. We're going over time, but we're not losing anyone, so I'm going to ask a couple more questions if that's okay with you guys. And
sure.
This is fun. Let me just word this correctly. Do you feel a need to stick to your kind of professional drawing style as part of your brand?
I think the way I draw is the way I draw. So there's kind of no, I can't really draw another way. I mean, I guess I could try. Yana Fink, to me, she said I always challenge of trying to draw differently, and when she said that, I was like, God, no. But that's how she feels, but to me, I'm like, no, I'm gonna draw how I draw. And I actually am always trying to become more loose and freestyle. I think I don't like my work as much when I'm trying too hard, so I'm very envious of the work of like George Booth and the way the freeness and the way he draws a dog is so amazing. And I want to achieve more carefree, relaxed line work.
Yeah, I agree. I think the journey for any cartoonist is always just to become more themselves. Like I always tell my students, like, if you can write your name, you can draw, and like drawing is a lot like handwriting. Like you're just trying to find your style, and that's not the approach that like someone who's more of an illustrator would take. So if you're trained as an illustrator, you're kind of like, you know, an actor who like wants to learn how to play every role, and that might be something that like an illustrator is doing. But if you're a cartoonist, like you're a storyteller, and so you just want to find sort of like the voice that serves the stories you want to tell. And so I think for me, because I've been doing like gag cartoons, which come very specifically from my perspective, and graphic memoir and graphic essays that are often about my life or my perspective or my family, I've never felt a need to change my style. But maybe one day I will come across a story I want to tell that requires a different style. I just haven't found that. I haven't found a need for that yet. So
yeah. I mean, I think for me, when I do have to illustrate a book, which is that's different. I'm doing it for somebody else. You know, I'm not illustrating my own book. If I'm illustrating for you, there's a little bit of give and take, and just in the way they want it to look, like whether it's in watercolor or they want it in flat and in black and white. I think that's as far, but they all still look like I drew it.
yeah.
But sometimes, you know, with clients, maybe. Because I typically, I'm like, I don't want to put color in most things, but
Yeah,
you know, if you're in a client-based job, you might need to do that.
Sure.
But, yeah.
Where do you both said you teach? Are you still teaching, and if so, where? Can people? Not Hilary, Amy, where are you teaching?
Well, I've taught for a lot of different places throughout the years. Like I used to teach in the academic world, and maybe we'll go back to that one day. But then I taught for my publisher, Catapult. But since the pandemic, I just teach in the Zoom-niverse, as I call it, which is like I just have been teaching my own classes on Zoom. So I had a class this summer that was like such a joy. I think maybe some of my students are here. And we just did it on our own, and it was really great. And it was 8 students in a workshop, and everyone was doing graphic memoir.
I love
and not graphic memoir. They were just doing storytelling in graphic form. And I plan to do that again. So if anyone here is interested in taking a class with me, you can just message me on Instagram. And then I also have private students that I work with. So it's just like an hourly rate. And it's been like such a joy for me. I feel like this is like the thing I'm most proud of in my life right now, is that I can just have students on my own. Like I don't have to work as an adjunct in an institution that like I don't have to grade. I don't have to like, you know, go to staff meetings. Like, so yeah, just like it's just been totally like my own thing, and I'm really excited about that.
Well, you know, it's funny. The way I met Amy, I had started like trying to become a cartoonist and was like drawing, you know, just silly stuff on Instagram, not really knowing where my life was headed. But then I was a nanny, and I saw an interview with Amy on realpants.com. And she said she wanted to, or no, she said she was, you know, a New Yorker cartoonist, and kind of talked about the process. And I just was like, oh my God, I want to do that. And then I messaged Amy on Instagram, even though I didn't know her. And Amy's the one that like told me how physically get into the New Yorker, like how to walk to the building. Like, because I was like, I don't know what you do, you know, like where do you go?
Gotta get on the subway.
You get on. So then you get off here. And Amy told me everything about how to just like get to the right floor and what to do. And that's how like we met. And it's just funny. Like you were a good teacher then, just through that way, just helping me.
Just giving directions. I give good directions, says Hilary Campbell. Which is funny that you say that, because I actually am like directionally challenged, and I don't. Like every time I left that, we used to, as you may have inferred, we used to have in-person meetings at the New Yorker building at One World Trade Center before the pandemic, which was open to anyone. Anyone could come. And so that's like what I was cluing Hilary into. And you could sit down and talk with the editor and share your cartoon, which was really amazing and rare and wonderful. And hopefully that comes back one day. But every time I was in that building, I was like hopelessly lost. Like, it's just this like labyrinthine building where you have to like plug in the number to use the elevator. And I like never knew like how to use that elevator system. And then it would deposit me like into the lobby when I was done. And I never knew which way to go, right or left. And I would just like end up hopelessly lost every time. So I'm surprised to hear that I gave Hilary good direction.
You did a good job with it.
All right, I will forego my question about cartoon cliches, but just so, I mean, everyone knows what we see at the cliches that, I mean, I am overwhelmed by are the Grim Reaper, the Desert Island, the Guru on the Mountaintop, and all cats. It's just like an endless amount of cat cartoons.
Dogs?
Well, now I want to ask it. Do you guys avoid those, or do you lean into the Grim Reaper?
Oh, you lean into it.
Yeah, I think cartooning, like, because you brought this up earlier and I wanted to say, like, cartooning is often about riffing on cliches because, like, a cartoon is, like, reality flattened and a cliche is also reality flattened. So, like, the goal, I mean, a good, clever cartoon is often working with cliche in order to do something unexpected with it. And so it's almost like the Grim Reaper or the Desert Island is like a form, you know, that you can try to pour an original idea into. And it doesn't always work. And sometimes you just have a cliche cartoon about the Grim Reaper. But like when you can do something interesting with that, it can be like really accessible for people because they're familiar with the form and the setting of the desert island. And that almost becomes this like metaphor for, you know, something else that they're trying to say in the cartoon, which we should shout out to. We have a friend who's putting together a book. Ellis Rosen is putting together a book of desert island cartoons.
Oh,
so
we have Ellis Rosen and Alta, I believe. John.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, now I'm going to look at Desert Island and Grim Reaper's cartoons differently, especially when Bill Porter submits his Grim Reaper on a Desert Island cartoon, which he is.
Yeah.
All right, and so my last question, because I don't know about everyone else, but I have to go back to work. As fun as this is, you know, you mentioned, I was kind of wondering, like, how do you meet each other? And it has me wondering about the cartoonist community, and is there one, and is it as quirky as I imagine it to be?
Oh, it's fun. Oh my God. I miss my cartoon like friend life more than anything. I think that at least amongst we have a really solid cartoon friend group within New York, and even though Amy's not here or whatever, you know, she's still obviously, I mean, no one's here right now, so but I think that the cartoon group is like the great group of people, and the Instagram's actually made it more accessible too, because like I've met other cartoonists online that maybe I wouldn't have been able to meet because I'm in Brooklyn and I've made friends that way. But I think what we're talking about, like the being in person at the New Yorker and like the cartoonist lunch that used to happen almost every week is very fun and like flourish, like helps you flourish, because cartooning is incredibly isolating. I've really struggled in this pandemic because I'm already alone too much, and now I'm alone on blast.
Professionally.
I'm professionally alone, and we are always so excited to see, because it's like, oh my God, we all know what it's like to be sitting worried about, you know. And it's funny. Cartoonists are funny. There's no way around it.
Yeah. I think it's just, I totally agree with everything Hilary said. Like, one of the things I'm happiest about is the friends I've made through cartooning and just the way the community is. Like, I think I mentioned that I was more of a writer before I became a cartoonist. So like I got like a degree in writing and I have a writing community that I also love, but there's something about the cartooning community that like everybody's nerdier and nobody's like, you don't have to be a certain way. Like there's just such an openness with the cartoonist world, and like everybody's trying to make things fun. It's like everybody's making jokes all the time. Nobody lets you get too serious. Nobody lets you take yourself too seriously. And it's just really supportive. So please join us. Like, we want you to be a part of our world. If anyone out there wants to, you know, enter our cartooning world, like, it's very kind. It's a very supportive world.
Oh my God.
because I came from the film world, and like that often is a dark place, and like super. I don't know. I feel like the cartoonists more than anything are like artists that really support their friends hugely, and we're not like get ahead of each other. I don't feel.
And it's ironic because it's so competitive. Like it's so competitive, especially for the New Yorker. It's like, I mean, it's just insane how much we could be in competition with each other, and we are, but we haven't really. I mean, maybe some people see it that way, but like the friends that Hilary and I have cultivated it has not been, that has not come up. So it's like people are just sharing ideas with each other. Nobody's afraid of like stealing each other's ideas. It's just like this open, sort of back and forth of people sharing work and helping each other riff. And I think the other thing I wanted to say is I think there's something about drawing that is maybe versus film or even versus writing, like is such an intimate medium. And I don't know, I've found also in the comic world that like maybe there's something about the act of drawing that makes people feel close to each other. And that's just maybe I want to advocate for people to draw more because I think it like makes us feel closer to each other.
It makes me always feel better, and I think it's like very calming for me.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of a better note on which to end this. So I think I speak for everyone who watched this when I say that we all want to be your best friends now. You guys are just awesome. For those that have missed any part of this, I'll have it up as soon as I can this afternoon. It takes a little while to download and then upload, but I will do it. So please head to Alta Online. Oh, you guys were asking for a cat. There you go. This is Pompeii.
I'm so jealous.
But please tune into altaonline.com later. I will be sharing this on social. And and then we have Snoopy. If you're at all interested, next week we'll be joined by historian and Alta contributor Bill Deverall, where he and I will be chatting about pandemics of West Coast past and how we survived those, in the hopes that it will help us appreciate that we will be able to survive this one. So please join us for a history of West Coast pandemics right here Wednesday at 12:30 next week, September 9th. Hilary and Amy, thank you both so much for taking the time. Please send us all of your cartoon submissions. I can say we're in love with you now, and I will vote for all of them. I'm really grateful, guys. Thank you. And thanks to everyone for joining.
This was really fun. Thank you. And thanks to Alta for joining the cartoon game.
Yeah, I know. Thank you guys for publishing cartoons. It means so much.
We are so excited to be here.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, stay safe and start drawing.
Yeah. Bye, Amy.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Hilary. Miss you.